Hello?
Good morning, guys. Just waiting another minute or two for everybody to join, and then we'll get started.
Good morning, Miss Amanda.
Morning, everybody. Okay, if you guys remember, we were reading the story yesterday, and we stopped, so we're going to continue our story. Basil, what's your question?
I gave the page yesterday, but I don't read.
Okay, I don't remember what happened with the reading yesterday. Wait until I ask if someone wants to read, to raise your hand to read, okay?
Can you say to me again the page, please?
This story starts on page 216.
And now?
What do you mean, and now? Turn to page 216, honey, and follow directions with everybody, okay?
Okay.
Go to page 216 and you'll follow directions with everybody else.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, honey. Wahba, what's your question?
What book?
What do you see on my screen, Wahba?
The story.
Yes, and I just announced that yesterday we were reading the story and we're going to finish it. I just announced that.
No, miss, but I forgot which book. Can you tell me?
Well, of course, our big story is always in the literature anthology, the big book, like every week, okay? Yes, Abdurrahman, what's your question? Hello, Abdurrahman.
We were going to read in page 223.
Thank you, honey. I will announce for everybody once they get their books and everybody joins. All right, so anybody who joins from this point on is considered late. 1 second. Siesta here, what's your question?
I was going to ask which page, I mean book, but I know now.
Okay, honey. Yes, Malik.
Miss, I'm so sorry that I'm late. I was in the bathroom and then I got out. I saw the clock, so I joined quick.
Okay, honey. All right. Let's get started. Yesterday we read about W.W. Law. Yes, Farida.
Sorry that I joined late.
Hey, it's fine. It's fine. Unless I sent you a message and said something about being late, I didn't count you late. That means you joined within the time that you needed to. No problem. Okay. All right. Let's get started. We talked yesterday about the story of W.W. Law and how he is going. Let's take a look. Remember, his grandmother's story started as he went down to the kitchen because he smelled biscuits coming from the kitchen. So he went down and he found his mother. Let me think. I think maybe his mother. No, his grandma. His grandma's biscuits. He went down and he found his grandma and her friend, old John. And John was born a slave and would tell stories to, sorry, I have a bad tickle, would tell stories to Wesley. And Wesley enjoyed listening to his stories. We went on to where we talked about how Grandma took Wesley to the store at Levy's department store and how she was treated badly because she was a black woman, and the white people who were in the store were treated well. And they left the store without buying anything because Grandma was upset. Although she didn't make a scene and say anything, Grandma was upset by the way she was treated, so she didn't buy anything and she left the store. Okay. We talked about segregation and how during this time when the story happened, black people were treated one way and white people were treated another. There was a fountain for black people to drink from and a fountain for white people to drink from. Things were separated. Okay. So a black person couldn't go into Levi's and sit at the lunch counter that was inside the store. Only white people were allowed to sit. Grandma told Wesley that no matter the color of his skin or how difficult it might be, that he had to work really hard in life to have a good life and to do something good with his life. And that she told him that no matter how people mistreated him, no matter how badly they treated him, that he had to fulfill his grandma's wishes. He had to do his best job to fulfill the prayer that she made for him, that he would grow up and he would be a leader for his people. Okay, so this was her dream for him, that she wanted him to grow up and do something good for his people and to lead them. All right. When we left, we started, let's see, we started, I'm sorry, we stopped on page 223 at voter schools. Okay. All right. So if you did not read yesterday and you would like to read, you can raise your hand. If you read yesterday, please put your hand down and give your classmates another chance. All right. Let's give chances to those who did not read. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, let's start. First paragraph on 223. Hamza, you can start for us.
War schools in 1942. Wesley knew that many black people didn't vote because they had to pass a test to register. The test was designed to be difficult for black folk to pass. It was intended to keep them from voting.
Thank you. Okay, so people vote for their leaders in America, and the test to be able to sign your name to vote was too difficult for most black people because they did not have the education they needed to be able to pass the test. The test was made that way because the white people didn't want the black people to be able to vote. All right, Farah, how about you? Next paragraph.
Yes.
Next paragraph.
Okay. She said that no matter how he was
We are
treated.
here, honey. We are here.
Oh, okay. Wesley was a member of the Youth Council of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The Youth Council started a special voter school in the basement of a church.
Thank you. Okay, so um, the Wesley was a member of the youth council. Youth means like young people. So it can be teenagers up to their 20s. This is a youth, young people. Wesley was a member of the Council of Young People who worked for the NAACP. The NAACP is a well-known organization, it's still active in America now, that works towards getting rights and getting equal rights for Black people. Okay, so back then they called them colored, and that's why it's NAACP. Back then, people would refer to black people as colored, not black. Nowadays, it's correct to say black. Okay. All right. Next paragraph. Abdurrahman. Okay, so they started a church um, school in the basement. They were teaching people what they needed to know to be able to pass the test to vote, because they wanted more black people to have a say in who the leaders were. Abdurrahman, go ahead.
With his friend Clifford, Wesley taught to everyone, even passer,
Passers-by.
passers-by, about voting. When he found someone who scared by the test had never registered to vote, he took them to the voter school. When they felt ready to take the test, Wesley went with them to the courthouse and stayed until they were registered. With Wesley's help and encouragement, many black people in Savannah became registered voters.
Okay, thank you. So Wesley and his friend Clifford would go out and talk to people they didn't know, people that were just passing by, and they would try to convince them that they needed to be able to vote. And when he found out that somebody was afraid to take the test, and that they had never registered, remember we said registered is when you go and put your name on the list, he would take them to the voter school, and then they would help them, they would encourage them, they would tell them they could do it, you can register to vote, and that you can pass the test, we will help you, and they would teach them what they needed to know to be able to pass. This way there were many more black voters registered to vote in the election, so the black people actually had a say in who were the leaders were going to be. All right, next page. Tahir, first paragraph. Tahir, hello. Go ahead, honey.
At the NAACP office,
We are here.
after work, Wesley spent long evenings
No,
at
honey,
the
you're on the wrong, that's the wrong page. The page before. Top of 224.
after college and the army. Wesley wanted to be a teacher, but because of his membership in the NAACP, no one in Savannah would hire him. So Wesley uh,
Okay, thank you, honey. All right, please turn off your mic. Jenna, continue.
So Wesley became a
You have to mute the mic on your,
mailman.
you have to mute the mic on your device.
So Wesley became a mailman. The postal service hired
Qualified.
qualified people regardless of their color. As it turned out, this job
Suited.
suited Wesley just fine.
Thank you. Okay, so what it says is that Wesley became a mailman. He got a job with the Postal Service delivering mail to people's homes. Okay, in America, someone goes around to your house and delivers your mail every day. People send a lot of letters, bills, advertisements, information through the mail, and so they deliver it to your house for you to read. or for you to pay your bills, or even orders that you get to come to your house for stuff. So the Postal Service was a government organization, so they hired people no matter what color their skin was. As long as they were qualified, they had the, remember we said qualified is when you have what it takes to do the job, when you have the specifications that the job requires. If you're able to do that job and you're qualified, then they would hire you whether you were black or white. So Wesley took this job and he liked it. He actually, it says it suited Wesley fine. Suited means that it fits. Okay, so it fits with him. So he liked this job. It fit with him. And Wesley was a mailman. Okay, Jamana?
Good morning, Miss Sally. Florence Jenkins Wesley sang out to a young woman in her garden. Here is a letter from your sister.
Okay, so he got used to people on his route and he knew them well. He was able to look at that mail and tell where it came from, that this was from the woman's sister, because they had probably had conversations before and he recognized the address that the letter was coming from. All right, next paragraph, yeah.
Hello.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Wesley liked to address people by their full names. He could trace a person's history in their name, and the history was important to Wesley. If you don't know where you have been, how do you know where you are going? He, he loved to ask.
Okay, so Wesley was very friendly and he would speak to all the people on his route. He would call them by their full name because their full name would be written on their mail. So this is how he knew their full names. Uh, he could trace a person's history in their name, meaning that the names that were written, some names were slave names, some names were famous names, some names were historical names. He could tell a little bit about the people by their names. All right, and history was very important to Wesley. Remember, Wesley used to sit in the kitchen and talk to old John, and old John would tell him stories about when he was a slave. So Wesley had an understanding of what history was about. And he would say, if you don't know where you've been, how do you know where you're going? If you don't know what's already happened to you, how do you know how to move forward? Okay. All right, next page, 225. Muhammad,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay. At at the NAACP office, February 1960. After work, Wesley spent long time even, even
Spent long evening.
evenings evenings at the NAACP office. One night, he was visited by a group of students who were excited about what was happening in Greensboro, North Carolina. Young black people there was staged a sit-in at a lunch corner in local store. They had refused to leave until they were served.
Okay, so um, Wesley used to work late at the NAACP office. Remember, he was a mailman during the day, but after work, he would go and work late at the NAACP office. And one night, he was visited by some people who explained to him that in North Carolina, there was a sit-in taking place. Remember when Wesley's grandmother went to Levy's and they wouldn't wait on her, and they treated her badly, and they waited on all the white people before her, and she left the store without buying anything. Well, this group of people went to the lunch counter at a local store, and because they're not allowed to sit at the lunch counter, only white people are allowed to sit at the lunch counter. They went to this place and they sat down and they refused to leave. This is why they call it a sit-in. They went to the place, they sat inside, and they refused to leave until they got service. Okay, so that this is exciting to Wesley because people are trying to stand up and take their rights. Okay, Basil, your turn.
Um, After work,
It's not where we are. We're here. Second paragraph.
the students standing in front of Wesley wanted to do the same thing at the department stores, stores sorry, on Broughton Street, but they needed a leader. Wesley remembered how his grandma had been treated at
Debbie.
Levy's, and he agreed to help. But first, the students had to be trained.
Train.
trained. Tra- trained.
Trained.
They had trained. They had to protest without ever using violence, even if the other side did. If they were attacked, attacked and they fought back, Wesley told them their cause would be lost.
Okay. So this group of students that visited Wesley wants to do the same type of sit-in at the department stores like Levy's and on Broughton Street in the town where Wesley lives. So Wesley knows that if they do this protest, remember, a protest is when you stand up and voice your opinion against something that you don't like. If they do this protest, then they have to be taught how to protest correctly. That if somebody fights with them, they can't fight back. That they must ignore the people who are trying to fight and cause problems. Because once they start fighting, people will not take them seriously. People will not pay attention to what they are trying to do. People will not value the protest that they are making. So if you notice on the sign, he tells them to dress neatly, enter together, sit together, order politely, do not react when people insult, and to leave together. This is a strategy to teach them how to protest so that people will have respect for them in the way that they carry themselves. Okay. All right, next page. Adito, your turn.
Yes,
Your turn.
okay. Levy's lunch counter. After a week of training, small groups of students made their way downtown, entered the big stores along Broughton Street, and sat down at the lunch counter. The store refused to serve them. At Levy's, the manager called the police, who arrested the students for breaking the city's segregation law.
Okay, remember the city was segregated, which means that white people were allowed in certain areas and black people were not allowed in certain areas. So when the owner of Levy's called the police department came and they arrested the students because the students were not allowed to sit at the counter. But even though they were arrested, they made a stand. They showed people that they were tired and that they're not going to continue to take this treatment. So this beginning of protesting and trying to change for civil rights. Okay, Farida?
Um, someone shouted, "I'll never shop at that store again." Then someone in the balcony threw
We are here, honey, at the top, throwing down their cards.
sorry. Wait, sorry, can you say it again? Where?
We're at the top of the page, the top of the page.
Wesley called a mass meeting.
the next Sunday at the Bolton Street Baptist church, people filled the pews and balconies. Wesley opened the meeting with a hymn.
A hymn.
A hymn, sorry. All the voices singing together made a thunder voice sound, and the mighty noise made people think that perhaps working together they could really make something happen. Wesley spoke about the arrests of the young people at Livy's. He said that things had to change, and he asked if people were ready to fight for their rights.
Okay, so Wesley is stepping forward as a leader, and he's trying to organize the people to get them together, because by themselves they can't make a difference, but together, collectively as a group, they might be able to make a difference. So they met at the church, and the church was full of people. Okay, there were people up in the balcony, there were people down on the pews. Okay, they opened the meeting there at church. They opened by singing a song, and then when they heard all the voices singing together, they realized how loud the voices were and what a thunderous sound. It sounded like thunder. They were so loud because there were so many people together, and they realized that by working together, they might actually be able to make a real difference. So he reminded them of the young people who went to levees and got arrested. And he said, if we're going to do this, if we're going to fight for our rights and we're going to stand up, then we're going to have to be willing to fight, because they're going to fight back. People will be arrested. There will be problems. It will not be easy. It's going to be difficult. So he asked the crowd if they were willing to fight for their rights. Okay, Moez.
After a week of training,
Yeah, honey, we're on page 227.
someone shouted,
There you go.
"I will never shop at the store again." Then someone in the balcony threw down a Levy's charge card. Soon everyone was tossing charge cards into a big pile in the church.
Okay, remember, they all had charge cards. Thank you, Moez. They all had charge cards for buying things from levies. Remember, they would buy items and they would pay a little bit each month to pay for them. So they used these cards to make their purchases. So this person stood up and said, I'm not buying anything from them again. If they don't treat me with respect and they don't value me as a customer, I'm not going to shop there anymore. And so before you knew it, all of the people were throwing down these cards. And so all of these people refused to shop at the store again. They refused to spend money with the business. Okay, next. Isel?
Yes,
Go
yes,
ahead.
miss.
Yes, dear, your turn.
The next morning, Wesley led a group downtown. Uh, they 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 cried,
They carried,
car- carried carried
carried, they
baskets full of charge cards. A- At at
heavy,
Levis Wesley and his group dump dumped the basket of charge cards into the sidewalk. Then Wesley announced announced
announced,
announced announced
announced,
that no black people would shop at any store on Broughton Street until they were treated equally.
Okay, so the Great Savannah Boycott had begun. Okay, remember we said a boycott is when people refuse to do business with the company because they don't like something about that company. Maybe they don't like the way they treat people in this case, or they don't like the way the business operates. They want to change what the business carries. They want to make a difference. So the boycott means they say, we're not going to do business anymore with this company. Okay? So all the Black people in the town decided that they're not going to buy anything else from any store on Broughton Street. So this is a lot of people. Remember how many people met in the church? And the voice was thunderous because there were so many of them. All of these people have decided they're no longer going to spend money in these stores and that they're not going to shop. So they are boycotting the stores until they treat them in a better way. All right, next. Medic?
Wesley and other members of the NAACP organized a picket line every day in front of Livy's. White people yelled and jeered at the protesters and tried to force them off the sidewalk, but day after day the protesters returned.
Okay, so they formed a picket line. If you see in the picture, you'll see all the people lined up. They were carrying signs and they were walking back and forth in front of the stores. And so people would, the white people would come and they would scream at them and they would try to put them off the sidewalk. But every day they came back. Every day they returned to protest the way that the people were being treated by these businesses. Wahamba, do you have a question?
I want to read.
You didn't read yet, honey?
No, I didn't read.
1 second, I'll let you read. Hold on. Okay, hold on, I'll let you read. Adito, do you have a question? Adito, your hand is up. Do you have a question? Okay, I'll put your hand down for you. All right. So every day the protesters came back and they protested with their signs in front of the stores trying to make a change. Every day the white people came and fought with them and tried to push them off the sidewalk. But they didn't stop. They kept coming back. Hey, Wahba?
One day a large burly white man punched one of the demonstrators in the face and broke his jaw. But everyone remembered what Wesley had taught them. They didn't yell or fight back, no matter how much they wanted to. Wesley organized the other protests. There were
1 second, honey.
kneelings.
So one second, honey. One paragraph. So a big white man came and punched the protester in the face, but the people remained calm. Remember, Wesley taught them that if we fight back, we are no better than them, and our cause will not go any further. Once we start fighting back, people will not take us seriously and they will not listen to us. Okay? All right. Yeah.
Yes, Miss Amanda.
Can you read, please?
It's not clear. It's not clear for me.
That's because you're supposed to have your book. You're supposed to have your book. You're supposed to be open to the page in the book, not reading from the screen. You're supposed to follow along in your book. Where's your book? Please get your book and follow along with us in the book. Leanne.
Yes, Miss Amanda.
Can you read for us, please?
Yesterday I read.
It's okay. Read.
Okay. Wesley organized other posters. There were
Protest.
protests. There were I
Nilins.
kneelings at the quarters on Sundays and wait-ins at the at all White Beach at TV. Wesley wanted to end seg- segregation everywhere in Savannah, in libraries, theaters, public pools, beaches, and restrooms, as well as at lunch counters.
Okay, so Wesley now was trying to get everybody to protest. They went to the white church and they got down on their knees. Remember how they they were sitting at the counter in the department store. They sat at the counter where they weren't allowed to eat. Here they went to the church that they were not allowed to go to the church, and they got down on their knees in front of the church. They went to the white beach that was only for white people to use, and they waded in the water, which means they went up to like just below their knees in the water, and they stood there. They were going everywhere making a difference. They were going everywhere trying to say, we're not going to be treated like this anymore, and we're not going to let you treat us this way. And they started to fight back. All right. So they began to try to take back all of the places for themselves as well as the white people. They didn't want to take the places from the white people. They wanted to be able to use them just like the white people were able to use them. All right, next page. Jada?
Miss Amanda? Miss Amanda? You can
Yes.
hear me? Miss Amanda?
Yes, I can hear you. You're breaking up a little bit, but go ahead and try to read.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello, you can hear me? Miss Amanda, I cannot open it because
Can you
my
hear
tab
me?
is power off.
Okay, honey. I'll call on someone else. Guys, you need to be prepared for the meetings when you come. You need to have your books or your tablets ready. You know you have the meeting. You should be ready to read when you're called on. Go ahead, Reem.
Talking about peaceful change. Large meetings were held every Sunday at different churches. Protesters talked about their activity, active, some gave fiery speeches. The meeting became so popular that no church was big enough to hold everyone who wanted to get in. For a year and a half,
Okay. So every Sunday, thank you. That's the paragraph. That's the paragraph. Thank you. Okay. So every Sunday they had big meetings at different churches, and they would talk about what they wanted to do. And some people would give speeches they called fiery speeches, meaning that they were meant to fire people up. They wanted to make people pay attention. And they became so popular that one church, it wasn't big enough to hold all the people. Our meeting is going to end now any second. Next session, we will finish the story and we will do grammar. So bring your language arts materials, practice book, textbook, and your notebook, okay? See you in the next meeting.